I'd like to discuss the book, just review the information in the first 3 chapters. You should have read the first 4 chapters by now as indicated in your syllabus, but just go ahead and work on the first 3. We'll discuss chapter 4 next week. The first chapter is really important. Be sure you look over the first chapter again, and discusses the first rock records before 1955, 1956. Rock really exploded in 55 to 56 when Blackboard Jungle came out with Bill Haley's Rock Around the Clock. We'll be watching Blackboard Jungle next week, one of the most important movies of the 50s, one of my favorite movies, very well done movie. Blackboard Jungle introduced the song Rock Around the Clock, and the combination of that song and Elvis Presley's explosion into the music business in 1956 with a couple of huge hits including Hound Dog and Don't Be Cruel and Heartbreak Hotel really started rock and roll. But before that time, as discussed in chapter 1, the contender for the very first rock and roll song, the main contender is Bill Haley and the Comets' Crazy Man Crazy. Still very much in the older swing type vein. Crazy Man Crazy, ba-da-doo, ba-da. So still really a very swing type song, but many consider it to be the first rock and roll song. 1953, Bill Haley and the Comets' Crazy Man Crazy sold over 1 million copies. And the chapter also discusses the movement from R&B music, rhythm and blues music, black popular music, into rock and roll, how rhythm and blues really morphed into rock and roll with some help from country and blues. But probably the most important thing to remember in the first chapter opposition, the opposition forms, chapter 1, the opposition forms, probably the most important thing is this idea of radio changing to television. Television came in the early 50s. We saw that in the movie The Wild One. In the bar scene, the old man is going, "What? Television? That new thing?" So that was in 1953. Television is coming around and pulling all of the programming from radio. So before this time, radio was not heavily music oriented. It was heavily oriented to what we might call talkies, soap opera type stuff, Perry Mason, the Green Lantern, Western type shows such as The Lone Ranger, talkie type shows. And you'd gather around the radio and listen to these talk shows, these dramas, radio dramas. So when television hit the scene, many of these shows naturally moved to television. So what did radio do? They started programming more music, and they would program niche music. Very important to understand the concept of niche marketing of music. They would program country music, maybe in Appalachia, to the poorer white people in Appalachia. They would program blues music to the black people in the South. They would program more urban blues and R&B to the black people who had moved up to Chicago or Detroit or LA. They would program, so we have country, blues, R&B, and then they would also start targeting youth markets. How do they target youth markets? Well, we got this new stuff coming out that the kids are listening to, this stuff they're starting to call rock and roll. So television, very important, and also television got together with radio, very important. Television, important that it pulled the programming from radio, allowed radio to start programming music instead of the drama type shows. But then car radio, the technology of car radio, we have this combination, this coming together of the new niche marketing in radio in the mid-50s combined with the explosion of car radio. Car radio is so important for the birth of rock and roll because now the youth, the baby boomers, the kids who were 15, 16, 17, 18 years old at this time could go out and drive around in a car and listen to their own music, and no one could control that but them. No one could tell them what to do. They could listen to their own music. They could find different radio stations. They could find these niche market radio stations playing urban black music, playing southern black blues music, playing country music. So they were hearing Muddy Waters, they were hearing Nat King Cole, they were hearing Ray Charles, they were hearing good old Hank Williams, they were hearing a combination of all this stuff. And of course, they're soon to be hearing the Bill Haley and the Comets, Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry. So a good section on the movies too, really talks about the movie Blackboard Jungle. We can't downplay the importance of this movie at all. It is such an important movie that really showed juvenile delinquency in the mid-50s, and also because of using the song Rock Around the Clock in the introductory credits helped to explode rock and roll. And we'll be talking much more about Blackboard Jungle in the future. And Chapter 2, lyrics, L-E-E-R-I-C-S. I know that's not how you spell lyrics, but that's how we spell it in this book. Leering, when you're leering at someone. Lyrics, suggestive lyrics. Talking about black music was very different than white music at this time. Black music used much more explicit lyrics. A couple of songs that were banned and discussed in the book as having very explicit lyrics. 60-Minute Man. You can guess what the lyrics to 60-Minute Man in a sexual way are about. Another song, Work With Me, Annie. I believe some of the words are, Annie, give me all your meat, is one of the lines. And these songs were considered extremely nasty, extremely dirty by the white powers that be, and so the rock and roll songs started getting in a lot of trouble because much of the lyrics were considered very suggestive. A few other interesting ones that are mentioned in Chapter 2, a few other songs. The Everly Brothers songs. Everly Brothers were two very clean-cut, nice white young kids who did Dream, and they did a song called Wake Up Little Susie. We fell asleep at the movie theater and at night, and now it's 2 in the morning, and everybody's going to think that we were fooling around. And that's all the song is, but it was banned on some radio stations. Wake Up Little Susie, very tame lyrics, yet some thought it was suggestive. Remember, this is the mid-50s. The older generation, white people were extremely puritanical, I guess we might say at the time, very hung up about sexual issues. And a couple of Elvis Presley songs that got in trouble. There's Good Rockin' Tonight contains the famous line, meet me in a hurry out behind the barn, don't you be afraid, I'll do you no harm. Because of that line, that song was banned in certain areas on certain radio stations, considered too suggestive. Meet me in a hurry behind the barn, don't you be afraid, I'll do you no harm. Another song, this is my favorite, Won't You Wear Your Ring Around My Neck by Elvis Presley. And won't you wear your ring around my neck? Tell the world I'm yours by heck. There's a bad rhyme. Was banned, was put on the list of improper songs because it might cause kids to go steady, and we don't want those kids going steady and doing things they're not supposed to do. So Chapter 2, lyrics about suggestive words in the early rock and roll music. Chapter 3, riots in the street. One of our quiz questions is about this on page 32. Talks about the Bill Haley, Alan Freed movie. Again, Bill Haley, so important for the evolution of rock and roll. Really before Elvis Presley had the big hit in 1953, Crazy Man Crazy, but then later, 55, 56, had the huge hit Rock Around the Clock, which is featured in the opening credits of Blackboard Jungle. And many credit Bill Haley with really kick-starting rock and roll, although Elvis Presley took it to the next level. Bill Haley and Alan Freed had a movie in 1956, Rock Around the Clock. And Rock Around the Clock was just, well, it wasn't a very good movie, and basically just showed Bill Haley and Alan Freed. Alan Freed, very important to understand who Alan Freed was. Alan Freed was not a musician, but he was a disc jockey, a very influential disc jockey. Some say he coined the expression rock and roll, others say no, it was around before that. Alan Freed just started applying it to this new style of music, which he called rock and roll, the music of Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Buddy Holly, and Bill Haley. Alan Freed, disc jockey. Alan Freed would insist on playing many of the original black versions of the songs. Many of these songs would be covered by the white artists and cleaned up. Alan Freed insisted on playing the original black versions, really was a champion of the black R&B style, especially of Little Richard and Chuck Berry. Alan Freed would put on these huge shows that thousands of people would attend. They were rock and roll shows. Many times they would just play records. Many times there was not even live music at these shows, but Alan Freed would show up, and he was quite the rock star of his day, especially for being just a DJ and not a musician. But Alan Freed was very, very big in bringing up black music and being very non-racist about this stuff, and had a lot of problems staying on the air, got canned from job after job, and developed quite a drinking problem and died fairly young. Tragic story. But back to the movie. The movie is Rock Around the Clock with Bill Haley and Alan Freed. The book goes into it and discusses it at length. Didn't cause many problems in the United States, but did cause huge problems in England, and over 100 kids were arrested in the month of September, I believe 1956 September, over in England. Caused a huge furor in England. This is all before the Beatles, 1956, and caused a lot of riots over there. The chapter 3 goes on to discuss other problems in certain communities with putting on rock and roll shows and the attempt to ban rock and roll shows. So we've got chapter 2, lyrics, the attempt to ban certain songs because of nasty lyrics. Wear My Ring Around Your Neck. Chapter 3, riots in the streets, attempts to ban the rock and roll shows entirely because they were afraid, the powers that be, the community organizers, the community fathers were afraid that these shows would cause riots in the streets, which indeed they did in England. So chapters 1, 2, 3, and be sure you go back and read chapter 1. Really pay some attention to that one. Very good chapter. And also, before we watch Blackboard Jungle for next week, go into chapter 2 and look at the information on Blackboard Jungle in chapter 2. Some very good stuff there. And we'll discuss chapter 4 next week. So there you have it, chapters 1, 2, 3. Stay up on your reading. And that's it.